I've never been in the military, but I've been on about 10,000 combat missions. If you don't have awareness, you're stuck. You have to choose awareness, because if you don't choose it, you won't make it up the hill. Whenever I speak, I connect with the creative pioneers and I alienate the nurturers. And I've been able to come up with language now. I don't mean for that to happen, because the nurturers are doing the same thing to me.
Rick, this is the Leader's Furnace. And I wanted to start off with just asking why the Leader's Furnace. Before we get into your story and all that, this is a space that we wanted to share with people, your story. We want to share your story and how you got to where you are today, the things that you're learning every day, the hills that you're still taking. And before we get to all that, I really wanted to just conversationally start by going, hey, why the Leader's Furnace?
Every day, as we go out and we go to work, you and I have worked on the 5 voices in the Enneagram. There's a whole lot of things out there that appear to be one way, that when you get into them at a deeper level, they seem to be very different. And this gives us a chance to sit down. I think there's a lot of illusions. And part of doing it is you get started with optimism, you get going, you like it, and then when you get into it, it gets peculiar, it gets confusing. And if you quit, you won't see some of the things that I've seen. But if you stick with it and you kind of go through this leader's furnace element, or go through fighting the illusions, you come out the other side with this tremendous truth. And it's frustrating sometimes. It can make you angry. But I think in the end, once you get to the truth part of it, you start to settle down and accept the fact that it's a God-made world, not a man-made world. But when you encounter this stuff and you encounter the frustrations, it can break you and make you run away. So this is a way to communicate that and talk about it a little bit between you and I.
Mm-hmm. How many times have you been through the Leader's Furnace?
I've never been in the military, but I've been on about 10,000 combat missions, non-military ones. Mm-hmm. We go towards the fire. We don't run away from it. We do that kind of every day in our business. Our business is, when we talk about Leader's Furnace, it just so happens we make fire and we're in the boiler business, so they kind of go together. But it's an interesting business because it either works or it doesn't. And when it doesn't, there's a lot of trauma, a lot of expense, a lot of emotion, a lot of people being impacted by that. So certain people at PMI have to inrush that, and they're kind of special forces people. Mm-hmm. So different level of respect there. When you get in the battle, there are people that run away and people that run towards. Mm-hmm. And the running towards people are a very special group. Mm-hmm. So
Phil Knight said, the founder of Nike, said that business is war without bullets. Mm-hmm. And you definitely do work business as war. There's kind of like this discipline that's part of it. There's this having a weapon or a tool system, weapon systems and tool systems to go along with your business. How much has that been experienced? How much has that been learned from mentors? How have you come to your own weapon system, tool systems that you have?
So with me being an Enneagram 6 counterphobic, that follows what you just said. And it took a long time to, from up to age 28, I didn't realize what was going on because it was controlling me. So I would be, as a 6, I would be passive and friendly and nice and a team player and a loyalist and all that good stuff, which was good. It was nice. But then at some point you started to realize that didn't work. So with me, instead of staying a pacifist, then it turns into an aggressivist. It's going to be like, basically I'm aligned. And then at some point it's like, no, I don't think so. Something's about to happen here. It took a long time to realize that. I think a lot of people feel they're peculiar, they're weird or whatever. Well, I did too. I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand why it felt that way, why I was, doing good and doing bad, sometimes simultaneously. So that's been, getting to the awareness of that and understanding how that works every day has been like the foundation of it. And kind of what drove that was, I was kind of living the American dream. I was blessed, kind of come out of some messy family and some dysfunction there. And I kind of got out of that, escaped it, rebuilt my family and kind of rebuilt a future. But I had a business at 23 and was married with a child at 18, got my job when I was 18, but I noticed at about 27 or 28 there was a problem. And I was winning the outside game, but I was not winning the inside game, and I could tell. So that's what sent me over to to Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church here in Newport News, and I spent 3 years in spiritual direction there. And I learned the Enneagram, and it gave me a map. So instead of being peculiar, weird, strange, all at once, I'm like, wow, I'm starting to see clearly who I am, and then who I am relative to others. And then I brought that back to work, and that started helping a lot of things. But that's kind of how I learned about myself and the kind of the tools, good tools and bad tools.
Mm-hmm. About 30 years ago, you started a journey of awareness. It started with the Enneagram for you. More recently, we've been doing the 5 voices and working through that. But that has been a big part of your tool system or weapon system, has been understanding the awareness. Let me lead you a little bit. I know you, right, in this, but the why, right? What is your why when you do this? Talking about awareness, you already kind of got there, but can you expand on that? Like if even just being here, opening up this space of the Leader's Furnace of going, hey, why is it important that we do this? Or why is it important that people, if there's an invitation for people to take a journey of awareness, why is that important?
Well, if you don't have awareness, you're stuck, and you have to choose awareness, because if you don't choose it, you won't make it up the hill. You'll be standing at the bottom looking up, asking, I want to be at the top, I want to see the view. But once you start going up the hill, you start to notice about 25% of the people, friends and neighbors and all that stuff, it gets a little different. It gets confusing is what it is. And the talking people are different from the doing people. The different styles are, there. Some people are really quiet and some people are vocal. All these things are happening. And as you go up the hill, you get a chance to see who's who. And I think part of what we want to do with this is anybody can do it, and it'll be done in several different styles. But you got to strive for the truth. You have to fight for the truth, because if not, you will be caught up in massive illusions. And there's so many illusions, it's scary. I mean, it is, we all the time speak tribally here at Power Mechanical, and we're in meetings about kind of tribal stories about, you followed this, you got confused, and then we walked you across, and now you see the truth of it. Now you can use that truth every day in your relationships, because the illusions start when people start talking and behaving. What you see and what you hear sometimes isn't exactly what's happening. And once you know the Enneagram and 5 voices, you can start to make sense of it. Also, I started to be really angry about it in my 20s. It was like, there's good people over here and bad people over there, and why don't they understand? And why do I feel right? And why do I feel they're wrong? Of course, again, just as a feeling, it's not right or wrong. Why did I feel that way? Well, I was mad about it. I didn't understand why everybody wasn't some jump up in the morning flag waving American. And when I grew up trying to escape that family thing, I felt that way. Well, other people, they got different perspectives on that. So once you learn the Enneagram and you put it parallel with the 5 voices, people are in 95% disclosure. I mean, there's nowhere for them to go. So if you're trying to prevent illusions, once you learn the Enneagram, and the first thing you do is learn it on yourself. We're not trying to twist the knobs and move the needles and bend people. That'd be a misuse of it. We would not be in favor if we did that. God would not see that as a good thing. I don't think we could prosper by doing that. What we want to do is understand ourselves, and then that's kind of confusing alone, understanding ourselves, understanding they're struggling with the same thing. And then we start going together with that. They're struggling too. I'm struggling. My perspective, Enneagram 6 counterphobic, is messy. Well, I'm sitting down. It's just say I sit down with a 4, and next thing you know, it's like you being a very evolved 4. Another 4 would be like, oh my God, the guy's like little Hitler. So this becomes prejudice is absolute ignorance. I mean, to dislike you and not know you, I just can't be part of that. But it could very well be that later on I find out, we don't get along. I can work with that a little bit. There's tribal bias there. At the end of the day, it's like, you're different than me. But once we start getting this Enneagram and the 5 voices going, that goes down radically. It's like, wow, you're experiencing life from a different perspective. And it's like, hey man, tell me about your perspective. How's that going for you? Why can you get out there and be a part of things and be excited and be fun and be connected, where I'm kind of introverted and quiet using my list? You don't need that. That makes it a lot of fun later. But a lot of people never make it around that far around the circle. They start doing it. They learn their Enneagram numbers and 5 voices. They go to a party and say, I'm a this or I'm a that. but they use the shallow method, not the deep method. And this principle of shallowness and depth, it's another illusion.
It's awareness is the depth. And before we get into that, just to recap, ultimately what we have with awareness is, you already kind of spelled it out, is knowing myself, right? We say know yourself to lead yourself, which is the self-awareness that is taking place and really understanding yourself. But then something that begins to happen is having others' awareness and understanding where others are coming from, how they're geared, how they are wired. And we still might not get along, but at least we know that we have a different wiring. It's not actually just like or not like. It's just the way people operate. We say personality, all it is how people process information and make decisions, right? And so being able to have that, and then as we begin to essentially open up that door of knowledge or understanding or awareness, it actually allows us to do our IQ, our task awareness better. Our jobs we are able to do our jobs much more efficiently, perform better, because most of the time what we're in the business of is people. Those people work on, in this case, boilers, right? But they might work in construction. They might work in medicine, right? But at the end of the day, it's people dealing with people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just seems like it's getting more and more challenging, where people are like, it's hard to be around people. It's getting tougher out there. There's more of a, even though we have all these tools, our phones and all of that, there's this, people want to get away from people. Mm-hmm. Well, when you learn this stuff, you reset that and move back towards people, because difference is great. But at first it's not. When you first look at it, you're like, you're frustrating. Why don't you understand? I've told you 3 times. Why aren't you getting it? Well, you're coming at it from a different perspective. And I think that's really important. But early on, when you're unaware, you want to kind of hammer that square peg in that round hole. When you find out later, it drops right in once you have awareness, because while you're trying to hammer it, it's just a lack of awareness. You're not far enough up the hill yet. So you got to hold on to this study of the Enneagram and 5 voices, because it's like, I remember for a long time I had just the Enneagram. And then we started working together, and you showed me the 5 voices. And I was always curious how in our business there's a group of 6s, and with me being a 6, and they're all very different. I'm just like, well, if we're all 6s, how can we be this different? And I knew them really well, and I spent time with them on 6ness, and we were kind of this little 6 tribe. But one of the 6s was kind of direct and a little bit a guardian 6. Another 6 was a connector 6. I was a counterphobic 6. And once you put the 5 voices layered on that, and I had about 4 months to interact on them, it was amazing. I mean, it just basically, the illusions went away. It was, they're wonderful in a different way. So, and then I wasn't trying to make them into a me or say, be more aggressive. Like us 6s, we tend to be pacifist. And then at some point we'll go there, but we start off as pacifists, and we're like going to be a great technical help for you. We'll do all the homework and all the notes and come in, but we won't push the go button. And I, as a 6, want to teach them to push the go button. If the 8s are here, they push the go button without any information. It's just like go. It's like, well, we're not sure what we're doing yet. Well, they got the opposite problem. They under prepare, where the 6s over prepare. So kind of learning about that, I wanted to mentor the 6s on, hey, I want to get you to a point where instead of you being a great supporter of others, you push your own go button. So, but without the 5 voices being layered on the Enneagram, couldn't see it. Now with those 2 layered over,
get practical.
It's incredible. I mean, you just get right to the truth of it, because there's everybody. You have to have a map for everything, and if you don't have a map, you're going to get where you want to go. It's just going to take you a year to get there. Once you have these maps, it takes 30 days to get there. It's huge. So, as we're talking about how to lessen illusion, this is kind of how we produce the map. We become aware. We share that map with others, and then they become. They become more of a team. When I hire people and they're welders, fitters, or admins, or whatever they are here, the relationship is Friday they're going to get paid. They're here. They can get a job anywhere, and I can get employees anywhere. When we start doing this, it's very interesting to watch how people. When you start talking about this, now there are some people that are like, whoa, this is getting a little bit weird here. But 80% of them are curious about this. They've never heard such things. And it's not a fault of a parent. Their parents didn't teach them. It's not a fault thing. It's just you got to strive to get this. It just doesn't show up for you. And even if it shows up, you have to put it in practice every day. So,
like when you're able to teach somebody about them, just because you're able to understand really how they process information and make decisions, or how their story has impacted them up to this point. And you're able to just call out some of those truths. They're like, wait, who have you been talking to? Right? We just met. How do you know that? Right?
Freaks them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be tracking illusions. Our illusion number one that you already brought up as we go through this leader furnace process is the shallow versus the deep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, not by choice, but have stayed in the shallow simply because they haven't experienced some of these tools for awareness. But what is the illusion of shallow versus deep? You were getting ready to talk about that before I changed directions.
Human nature is you want to be comfortable. You don't want to be afraid. You want to feel good. All of those things will hold you back. You can do both. You don't have to do one or the other. You can spend part of your day in comfort zone and feeling good zone and in control zone. But if you don't stretch out a little bit and go towards the fear, and this is just counterphobic talk right here, just run towards the fear. If you go towards the fear, go towards the uncomfortable, you don't stretch. And what we find here with our people is that we have to teach them, stretch out a little bit, engage that side of you that is the undeveloped side. It's a totally different thing for if you use my tribe of sixes. What we're having to do is totally different than the fours and the eights. They have a totally different program they have to use. I mean, what we find with the eights is they just need to slow down a little bit, do a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking, a little bit of collaboration, because they're ready to push that go button. Mm-hmm. But they push it, and then they have lots of rework. Well, the sixes get ready, and they take 13 weeks to get ready and never push the go button. So both of them have the same quantity of problem, just a different problem. It's not a good or bad. It's just you're not aware. And so once you become aware, you get to work on this. You just start every day as a, practice. It's I got my part of the day where I want to be comfortable, and I got my part of the day where I want to be stretching and growing, but I'm purposeful with it instead of accidental. Mm-hmm.
Shallow, as I've seen it, is many times leaders will say, well, this is just the way I am. And it's, in some ways it becomes lazy talk because they're saying, this is how I am. No one's going to change it, or I'm not going to change it. And it's just the desire to stay comfortable in your personality. We call that somebody who just becomes, let's say, a connector who becomes more connectory the older they get, or a guardian who just becomes more guardian-y the older they get. They just become a caricature of themselves. They're like, this is the way I am. I'm going to double down on my strengths, rather than realizing, wait, if I just build out this other part, right? A creative pioneer who decides to build out that connector, nurturing. These are intuitive words, and they mean what they mean. They're connecting with people, nurturing others. When you're able to build that other side of your creative pioneer out, all of a sudden you're not a caricature of yourself. You're actually become a more aware, healthier, whole person. But the shallow end says, this is the way I am. I'm going to stay this way. You know what I mean? I'm just a good old boy. You know what I mean? Or I'm just a hardworking person. This is what I do. And you can be all those things and be whole. Right. And so that's the shallow and deep. There's this one truth that we live by, and it's the fact that all growth comes through discomfort. There is no growth in being comfortable. And so what does that look like for you? Is that a truth that has been true for you as you enter into whether it's self-awareness, others awareness, God awareness? How has that served you? The all growth through discomfort.
Well, I benefit there because I'm counterphobic. Where a lot of people, it's really for me, it's easy. Mm-hmm. I run towards the fight. I'll run away from it first, but then after that, I'm like, okay, let's get at it. Mm-hmm. And it's an internal struggle, but I benefit there, where other types struggle there. But I like what you're saying. It's like everybody has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses, but they all exploit their strengths. And nobody exploits their weaknesses. Whenever I go to a party or go to a function and you're sitting with somebody and they're talking about, I got this and I won that and I'm a this and I'm a that, the shallow is beginning. And it's wonderful because they feel good about it. They want to celebrate their wins, or everybody does. But some of the coolest people I ever met start off with talk about their weaknesses first. I mean, that right there, when you can get together and you start talking about, I'm not good at this, I struggle with that, I got a goal to improve that this year, that's where the work begins. You're not going towards the comfortable. It is uncomfortable to say I'm weak. At Power Mechanical, a lot of people, how can it be that Rick is a fear type? I mean, people are like, it's like he's crazy. He does everything he wants to do, any place, any time. It doesn't make sense. Well, there's an illusion there. It's like once they get to know me, then we find out, hey, I struggle with that, but I overcome it because my counterphobic 6 kicks in, which is like extreme 8-ness almost. It's like this crazy 8-ness, So everybody has to work on, although we're speaking of my strengths and weaknesses, we want that everybody to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and that way they can get to work on. In the example of me being a creative pioneer, it's awesome. I'm good at those two. They're very forward-looking, very visionary, you'd have to wonder how I got that. I got that from my childhood, from all those years ago, going, I can't wait for this to be over with. I was thinking about, hey man, I can't wait to get out of this. What would it be like to think about a year from now, what it would look like, or a day from now, sometimes even an hour from now, what it would like to be out of this situation. So this creative pioneer was formative in the early years. I'm just like, I just want to be out of this mess I'm in, domestic violence, eviction, cars repossessed, people beating each other up, drugs, alcohol, just angry people, man. So
we say that there's all the leadership behaviors that you have today are a product of your nature, which is your personality. And for you, your personality, you process information in the future. How is this going to affect tomorrow? How is this going to affect next week, next month, next year? And then you process information, or you make decisions based on logic and systems first. Then you move to people, principles, and values. And so as you're moving through that way of thinking and working and living, that's your nature. Right, that's your personality. But then you have your nurture, which is your story, your narrative. It's your parents, where you live, your socioeconomics, how much money did you come into, or none at all, right? And then the pain that you experienced through your life, the hardships that you experienced, that made you who you are today. And then the choices that you made along the way. We're going to get into your story. Before we do, I want to ask you, where are we at today? What is PMI? That way we know almost a snapshot of today before we go back to the origin story.
So kind of where's PMI at today? It's about 40 years old, has 200 employees, and has like 9 different divisions. It's kind of hard to describe it. Each area of the company and each group of people has what's called a 1-page. With me being a creative pioneer, goals are really important. So basically I have, within these 9 divisions, a very significant influencer. We refer to them as pilings. They have to earn the right to become a piling. They don't show up and we're buddies and you're a piling. It's like, until we do combat together, you're not piling rate until I see you behave. And there are some people, the art of this is seeing them as a piling before they're a piling. I mean, that right there, the people that can do that, they're going to possess the markets because they'll possess the great people. Because there are people out there all over the place that are just wanting to be somebody, but sometimes they can be hidden by others, and they can be, they get under, we use that term red, yellow, green here. And, there's PMI, there's green people, which are the ones they want to go to work every day, be left alone. They don't want a supervisor, and they don't need one, because they behave correctly. The reds and yellows, they have to be checked on. And especially the reds, there's integrity issues there. They're doing things they probably shouldn't ought to do. They're putting themselves at risk. But when we encounter these people that are green, especially when they come in new from somewhere, we got to kind of take them to the side, because red and yellow people don't make green people. Green people green people make green people, and those people become division leaders. It doesn't matter how old they are. It doesn't matter how experienced they are. You have to kind of want it. You have to be goal oriented. You have to be disciplined. You have to like pain, and not in a weird way, but you have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And a lot of these people that we encounter have had challenging childhoods. What we find with this, to really find these people quickly, and this is going to be, you can find them 80% this way, not 100%, but 80%. They either had really strict parents that spoke of hard work ethic, a lot of times farm people, animal, livestock. There's a lot of people come from that environment where the parents, right and wrong, there was discipline. When you did something wrong, there was a conversation about it. You may even got a spanking or something. Then there's the dysfunctional family group, where they show up and they've been kicked around. They've seen abnormal psychology. Now, they didn't know they saw it, but they saw things that were like, that was not on a Disney movie. Somebody's an alcoholic, somebody's a drug addict, somebody won't work. They won't work, and the family's becoming marginalized because the parents doesn't want to go to work, and you're living on the backside of that. Those children that grow up to be adults there, they want to break that cycle. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So as we start to talk about PMI, when I wake up in the morning, there's only two things I'm thinking about: who I'm going to set up a new division with, who I'm going to fire. Because I can't control it with 200 people. But those two things each morning are what I have to do. And I hate the firing part because I'm a failure at inspiring them out of a red. When we encounter people, when I was 23 with Paramechanical, if you were red, boom, man, we're going to make you disappear. But at age 63 and at year 40 and being a better Christian, we have to do something about that, not just throw them away. We don't do that. Look, we're going to care sometimes more than you care. And we're going to give you several different tries, but at some point, just as Jesus refers to, we're going to have to kick the sand from our sandals. But we don't want to. But once we try, and once we apply our caring and we find out you don't care, we can't have you here. And we have a lot of people that will come back 5 years later and they're ready now, or understand they've lost jobs at other places. So that's going on every day. And the red, yellow, green thing's peculiar. The ultimate thing to find as a person is green. And when you find somebody that's green, I can't take credit for them as a leader. They came to me just ready to climb the hill, and persistent. So as far as the Paramechanical, we have the when people come to our company, they take the Enneagram test. They participate in the 5 voices. We kick off very early with awareness. And some people want it. Some people, finding is reserved for the searchers. It's a peculiar thing, what I just said. You're like, what does that mean? Finding is reserved for the searchers. There are some people that are not searching, which means they'll never find. You need to be searching. It's January, the first week of January right now, and it's like, man, if you haven't set some goals yet, you must really like your life like it is, because it's going to stay that way. And then you want to be going up the hill and evolving and adding some stress to your schedule, a new book, a new YouTube channel you're listening to, a new mentor. All these things are happening here. People, wonder about, when they take this Enneagram test, then they don't know what to do with it, or they start choosing the wrong numbers, or the 5 voices, they struggle with it. But, we just give that to them. That's our gift to our community. We spend a collective total on the mentoring and the time on the mentoring of $450,000 a year. But that for me, I've done that for a couple of years now, which means that whether they stay with me or not, I've put $900,000 into my community. I like that, so, and I think people like that. Have a lot of people that, my wife has a horse rescue, and I know a lot of people that are just big-hearted and wonderful people. And, they're only lacking one thing. They got the big heart and the big plan, and they want to help, not any money. And a lot of people are like, why don't we be rich? It's like, yes, you do. I mean, because you can't help. It's like the world's full of good-hearted people that are poor. I mean, if you don't have any money, you can't help. You need to become rich, or rich is it varies, okay? But where you have excess, where you can help these good-hearted ones make a difference. But a lot of people think it's evil. It's not evil at all. You want to be the best version of you. You want to become aware. You want to learn the 5 voices, the Enneagram. You want to interact with others. You want to start to see other people where their strengths and weaknesses are. It's amazing with me. Every time I sit with our group, like on Friday, when we have our people are all kind of the whole company or the safety meeting, whenever I speak, I connect with the creative pioneers and I alienate the nurturers. And I've been able to come up with language now. I don't mean for that to happen, because the nurturers are doing the same thing to me. Every time they sit down with me and they start doing like 15 minutes of nurturing, I'm like, you got like a notepad and a pencil with that nurturing? I'm like, we need to get a little busy with this. I don't need to hug it out. I'm not going to hug it out. I'll do the hug to start with. Then I got to have a to-do list past the hugging. But the point of it is that both sides there can be wounded, and you got to rise above that. I've been a better version of that with your mentoring, where I've been a better version of that in the safety meet. I was using too much of creative pioneer and Rickness on them, but I was on a regular basis not intentionally wounding my nurturers and connectors.
Yeah, there's these different parts of the body, and in some ways you have different gearings all around, right? People that are like a creative pioneer or a nurturer, connector, right? They're different personality styles, let's say, and that makes up the body of Jesus. If you're in the church. But then there's also, to what you're speaking to, I want to connect the two ideas. There's also in the body of Jesus, those who have these big hearts who can do, but then there's also in the body of Jesus these people who can give, who may be good heart, but they're about the work and they find success. They find the knack for making money. And there's this complementary thing, but it's intention, because there's both this complementary thing where some give, some receive, some do. But then there's also this need for us to all do our job really well, to learn how to do our craft really well. And so, I see the tension that you're talking about, of how we're geared so differently. And I mean, not everybody's going to be rich, right? You and I have talked about this at length, how the goals for the reason everybody gets out of bed every morning is so different. Some get out to be like, today I'm going to make $1. Some get out of bed because they're going to have high purpose. Some of them get out of bed because they're going to be around their people. And, and we go around the peace index in a way where we go, hey, everybody gets out of bed for a different reason altogether. And understanding, that's another point of awareness, is understanding why people get out of bed, why people do the things that they do. And again, it's a combo of our nature, nurture, and choice. And why we get out of bed is the leadership behaviors that we are operating out of today is always a big mixture of all of those coming together.
But it's when you become aware, you can start adjusting those properly. When you're unaware, there's no calibration. It's just crude, clunky. It's just happening, but you don't know why. As we increase awareness and we learn the depth of the Enneagram and 5 voices, because it's when we hang out together, it's called the inch deep, mile wide awareness. When you start doing the work of it, it's the mile deep, inch wide awareness. And man, those two things are both, when you discover them, most people are just barely messing with them, but they're both a mile deep. And once you start to go down that shaft of that mile deep stuff, it gets a little hard, it gets a little heavy. Sometimes it can be aggravating. But the truth meter just starts soaring. You start learning all these things, and you start to see why it's happening. Then we have to help people with that, with that adjustment that they make as they encounter this awareness and they choose to go down the awareness path and down that shaft towards the mile deep, getting away from the inch deep, because the inch deep is the superficial. A lot of people, man, that is comfortable. They want this nice and fluffy, and we're going to talk a lot, but we're not going to encumber ourselves. We're going to have really good talk. My personality style is one, I want to talk just long enough to get started. And to me, it's confusing. Some people, I have a wonderful wife who's definitely a person that's a nurturer and kind of a connector type. And people will sit with her for hours, and she will give them hours of her time. I'm wired differently than that. I'm just like, I want to talk just long enough so we can get started. My wife says, we'll talk all day, but won't create a new list. there it is.
And
It's just
they both serve different purposes.
absolutely.
Yes.
They both have good and bad in them, but we got to celebrate the good and get to work on the bad, and then this concept of the making money, it's amazing that so many people are complaining, making money, rich people suck. It's like, aren't you asking me for some money? You're asking me to donate, right? Did you just say I sucked? You need to watch your mouth. I'm just saying that right there. I mean, why would I want to do that? You're over here slapping me around a little bit, and I have the ability I want to bless, I want to do this, but somehow you've labeled me bad because I've made it from poverty to here. I didn't inherit my money. When I sit with groups of people where there's inheritance involved, that's a different respect group right there. That right there is, you were given $1 million. I serviced 97 customers and worked 200 people to make my $1 million. We are not equal. Okay, you inherited yours. Yours is given money. Mine is earned money, and we need to get this dialogue going here, because why is wealth becoming bad? Why is making money bad? Why is everybody a bad capitalist? When the truth of it is, it's just like anything. A small percentage of them are bad. Okay, just like white people, Hispanic people, black people, but instead it isn't all or nothing. These are small groups of people, and people are all the time using these exceptions when the rule is mostly goodness, when it's, a little bit of badness. And, so we got to get a little bit off of this idea where wealth is bad, because it's a wonderful tool. I've done a couple of things in my lifetime I've been able to do, from a person who, just when I was younger, or 8, 9, 10 through age 15, I'm like, man, I didn't think I'd be anything. At the best, maybe make $20 an hour and live in a trailer. But to think how I came from there to here, and the price that was paid to, we talk about the group of 5, where the 5 people that you hang around, the 5 people I was hanging around back then were not conducive to putting me where I'm at. They were conducive to having me in jail and an addicted person and with no future. We've got to work on getting that message out to people about go to work every day. There's the rule of being selfish and the rule of being others-ish. Serving customers and making money is not selfish, it's others-ish. You can make it selfish and make it evil if you want to, but the fact that you get out and you work and somebody pays you, and if you make $1,000 and $200 of that is the money that you keep for profitability, take home for your family, for your meals, for vacation. How did this become bad and evil? This is ridiculous. So
last year, as we were having this conversation, you launched. We built as PMI, right? The 200 employees with your multi-million-dollar company, lots of assets of boilers and chillers and things that you do. 9 divisions, different things. There's kind of a you've diversified some of the things that PMI does, but you ultimately said, "Hey, we build people that build boilers," and that has become almost a mission statement for people to understand that when they're coming through the doors, when they are part of this company, that building people is actually what we do first and foremost, and out of the outcome of that, or the product of that, is that they're able to build boilers and actually able to do it at an excellent level. But that's because the people have been built out, right? Pilings is a term we use internally for mentees, or people that are being discipled or mentored, and we said pilings are these people who they stand 6 feet above the water, like a person does above ground. But you never know how deep the piling goes down. The piling might be another 6 feet, 10 feet, or it might be a 50-foot piling that goes into the ground, right? We live here in Hampton Roads in the HRBT. We see these pilings stand out of the water, but they're much, much deeper into the ground, right? Those pilings can withstand a lot for a long time. And so the idea with PMI has been, as we build people that build boilers, everybody gets to be built out, as much as you want to be engaged in the work of awareness. But then there's this pilings group, these piling groups that's actually, they're getting built out very intentionally and directly by you, right? And they're actually deep pilings that they stand 4 to 6 foot off the ground, but man, they they can combat, they could do work. Right?
And then they have me hammering them. And people are like, you use the word for. When I hammer that piling down deeper, it will hurt, but it's for good. I want to see how deep your piling can go. There are some people that are, 20-foot pilings, and there's some people at PMI that are 100-foot pilings, and they're different. And you don't notice this stuff every day. When we're all walking around, we all look equal. We're all standing about 6 foot tall. But when you start going up that hill, you will find out how deep somebody is. And it's a journey. A person that's 10 foot deep eventually becomes deeper, and some people give up at a certain point. But that process of using that hammer to drive that piling down to greater depth is a moment of we are for them. And one of the struggles we had early on, we were building out what was called RICU, so to speak, RIC University. Well, that had a lot of hammer and not a lot of for. So that wasn't working, and I could tell it wasn't working because I meant good for it, and it kind of broke me down a little bit. And then you came along. It was almost like it was the Lord sent this to me. I knew I couldn't do it, and then your program came, and we did the PMIU. That makes sense? And that right there changed everything. The going from the RICU, because I was a bit eccentric. I was a bit Enneagram 6 counterphobic, pushing, less feeling. Us sixes, we're not people. People have betrayed us. Okay, so for us, we're very guarded. You fours, you guys are wide open, loving, awesome people. We don't even understand how you breathe every day, because you're so different than us. But thank God for you, But with us, we're kind of the doer and the list people. But there's a blind spot there, But you have the same blind spot a different way. That makes sense. Yes. We all have it.
Yeah, we say we're all born with half of it.
Yep.
And then you have to build out the other half, or figure it out, or find a mentor.
And you will, it's one of those at PMI. You can be a Christian. You don't have to be a Christian. We're fine with all that. But at the end of the day, I don't see how it's possible to achieve it without being a Christian. Because once those piling hammers start pounding you down, and you start to feel that, and you feel that pressure, and you feel that you're becoming more and more, and you see the illusions, and you see the people and the peculiarities, and where they start ducking out and freaking out and crying and all kinds of stuff. Prayer, the relationship with the Lord, it's the only thing that will sustain you. It's so intense that without that, it's impossible to achieve it, for me anyway.
In the Gospels, we see Jesus model for us how to make disciples. And the majority of the time in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we see him operate at a high level of leadership. I mean, the highest level of leadership, to the point where people that aren't Christian today still hear of him. And when it comes to his leadership, I mean, how do you create that impact? We know from a spiritual point of view, it's the Son of God, right? And so obviously we're going to hear about him, but a third of the world believes in him, maybe more. And then on top of that, he is known by most of the world. I mean, there are unreached people, groups, and yet, his leadership is so powerful. He's so influential. Why? Because he took the time to pour himself out to 3, right? Peter, James, and John. And then those 3 led the 12. And those 12 lead the 72. Those 72 lead the 500. And then we have this movement that's taking place. It's one of the things that we can hope for at some smaller scale, to be able to maybe not worry about the product or the fruit of that work, but just worry about the system that he gives us. The system that he gives us is, you've got 3 people that you can give yourself away to. You got 3 people that you can give replicate your whole self in, right? And let them be your pilings. Let them be your disciples, your apostles. And as you do that work, don't worry about the fruit. Don't worry about the harvest or the outcome. You just do that work of pouring yourself out, multiplying your magic, your gold on 3 people. And it might be it might be for me. I think about it. It might be my son, a really good friend, and somebody that works for me, right? It might actually be a mixture. It might not just be work for me, right? It might be a mixture of that. I know you have family working here as well, so it might actually be, son, daughter, another piling, but there's just so many possibilities for anybody. Just the goal, the push is just put the work in. The output, the input is our responsibility. The output is up to the Lord. Right? Right.
There's a lot of people that tell me we do it wrong. They're like, you should not be that connected with these people. This is business. They should work 8 hours a day and do a certain amount of work, and you should bill that. You should not have to go this deep. Why are you a psychiatrist? Why are you that connected with your people? This is the new world now. Anybody that doesn't do this will go out of business, or will not be, the success will not come to them, because what we find here is 50% of our employees have extreme trauma. It's just not discussed. So they still have it, and they bring it to work every day, and they go home, or they drink, or they do drugs, or they're angry, or they're upset, whatever it is. When you start talking about this, it relieves some of the pain. We call it a trauma stack here. In life is collectively a trauma. If you make it to age 80, you have seen some things. You've seen cancer, and you've seen car wrecks, and you've seen people die. You've seen injustice. So this trauma stack keeps growing, and you need a partner. If you don't deal with the trauma stack, it flips over and you crash. So what we do here is, knowing that everybody's had these traumas at a different level, you have to have a certain amount of relationship or counseling or therapy or a huge friend that will reduce the trauma and make the connection with you. So with us, we're wide open with trauma. We like talking about trauma. Some people are like, what do you do that for? You're not supposed to do that. If you ever see me in prison, it'll be for like HR violations. I'm just like, HR, like, throw that book in the trash. I'm a people person. I'm not a HR rule book guy. That's what we do here. And we occasionally will have people here that, we're going to bring up any names with it, but it's one person in particular right now, really tough, really strong, kind of in your face, awesome doer, tough, too tough. And I told this person one time, it's like what you do, but you need to shave off about 15% of that, or I'm going to shave it off for you. Had 2 or 3 goal meetings with this person. Everything's tough and direct. The 4th goal meeting, this person cried for 70 minutes straight. And I was able to listen to a story that I wanted to cry hearing it. But you're not allowed to do that in that role. You have to be strong. You're not allowed to cry. You have to be strong. And but hearing it was, man, I've had some trauma. She's like triple my trauma. I'm like, Jesus. And how you still stand it. It's what made her so tough and kind of mean. She cries for 70 minutes. And next thing you know, over the next 4 or 5 months, we see this transition and rotation of her. She needed somebody to let it out with. And she had to believe in me and trust me enough to release it. I told her it was an honor to hear it. I said, who else have you shared this? We said, only one other person. I said, thank you for choosing me to be the second one. And then next thing you know, she's on the move. Just
hearing her story.
And people are like, what's going on with that person? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, something's happening. Well, here it is. Instead of being in financial and billable hours and what you do today, we're going to do all that stuff too, because we're serving customers. But she had a story that was untold that she needed to get out, but she couldn't trust anyone because she had so much trauma. With us, we're wide open for that. That's like, man, look, if you choose me to release it to, I'm blessed. I'm thankful. I'm thankful that you chose me. That right there will build relationships. If you do that, the piling's already 20 foot in the ground.
Just bringing, a story from dark to light, bringing it into light. It already does so much to expose, to heal, to begin the process. One of the things that I don't want to miss today is just talking through the beginning of your story. And being able to talk about, where you were born, what growing up with mom and dad was like, and then, working through some of the way your mind began to work on things early on. Could you kind of kick us off from the beginning? We'd take, let's say, a half hour to do that today.
Well, for some reason, the Lord hated me. He gave me 2 flaming Enneagram 8s as parents. Man, Lord, thank you, but I wasn't sure what was going on early on. And I didn't realize that till later. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, in Speedway, near the Indiana 500 racetrack. So mom and dad. And there's a lot of screaming, a lot of violence. There's domestic violence, anger. You know, people were very quick to lose relationships. One of the reasons I really value relationships, I just saw people throw them away every day. I'm like, for me, I'm like, relationships, some people say they're supposed to be like 50-50, right? I'm okay with a 90-10 relationship. I'll put in all kinds of work to keep it. And sometimes I shouldn't do that, but it matters to me because I'll hold on. I'll do 90% of the effort if I have to, just because I've seen so many people throw them away. And relationships are like everything, you know? So started seeing all these relationship problems and all this anger and all this dysfunction. And, I didn't realize it till I was about 30 what was the driver of that. And my mom and dad both had some dysfunctional family stuff growing up. And the fact that they were eights made them really direct and kind of tell it like it is and in your face. And if I can't get my way, I'll hit you or I'll be angry or get physical with you. So that stuff was going on all the time. Hard to understand. And it created in me fear. So the fact that I'm a 6 is not accidental. It's in my formative years. This environment was dangerous. You never knew what was going to happen. I mean, hospital trips, police coming, ambulances coming, whatever. You just never knew what was going to happen next.
Do you have a story with your mom or your dad that stands out?
About 100. But the one story that taught me a lesson early on was I was just a kid, and my wife and I right now are really into horses and have a horse rescue. Well, when we were kids, her and I both, you'd have a horse and a saddle. Next thing you know, the family didn't have any money, they'd sell it off. Then you get one back and you'd love your horse, and they have to sell the stuff off. So, for my wife and I, that was kind of like a childhood trauma where we had these horses and we loved our horses, but the family would struggle a little bit and had to take, they needed money. So you'd lose your friend, this animal that you loved, or this wonderful horse riding thing that was going on a regular basis. But one event in particular that was we'll call it a little less than fatherly, was there was a gravel pit behind our house. It was about a quarter of a mile from the house. And my dad said, "Don't go to the gravel pit." And, I'm like 8 or 9 years old. And like, it's just a gravel pit. I mean, how much trouble can it be? So me and a couple other kids go back there, and we're swimming in the gravel pit. And gravel pits can be dangerous. There's undertows and different types of currents. Well, my dad, he only does like one sentence things. You get like one sentence, and after that, you'll if you violate that, the consequences will be extreme. So we're back there, and next thing you know, my dad finds out we're back there. So he comes back there, and there's 3 kids there. So he starts hollering and screaming. The other 2 kids start bawling, and they're running home to their parents. Well, he's got a hold of me, and he beat me with like a piece of a tree for like a quarter mile. I mean, beat me all the way to the house. And, I'm like 8 or 9. Like, so maybe 1 or 2 whacks would have served the purpose, but no anger, extended anger. Just keep going at it. Just keep going at it. I laid in bed for like a week, maybe 10 days. I don't think that would be really how to teach your kid not to go to the gravel pit. But there was a lesson learned there. I didn't go to that gravel pit ever again. I mean, I didn't drive past it. I didn't even look at it. Because that was just how it was. It's one of those, one time the kid was kind of a bad boy up the road, and he was smoking cigarettes. He's like 12 or 13. And he's like, "Hey, let's smoke some cigarettes." So smoking cigarettes or something. My dad finds out about it. He makes me smoke like 3 packs with him. I'm just like, so he says, "You want to smoke? You want to be a man?" No, I was just up the street with this one dude. He's a friend of mine. He's smoking cigarettes. If you want to like ground me for a week, that's fine. No. We're going to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes together right now. You're 9 and I'm like 30. So we smoked 3 packs of cigarettes and got through that, I guess. So it's pretty extreme. It was just on a regular basis. That's how that worked. It wasn't a loving discipline. It was anger driven discipline, and I learned early on how to look out for mean people, so I'm a head type. When I encounter people like this, I can navigate them very well. I can keep them calm and don't let them trigger, because anger is weakness. A lot of people think anger is strength. No, it isn't. Fear and anger are the same thing. They just come at it from a different perspective. And there's nothing overly cool about being angry. You can't control yourself. You're always angry. You can't control yourself. You're always afraid. They're both the same. But angry people think they're strong. Well, it's false masculine. And that's also a lack of awareness. So I grew up with all that false masculine. I almost never heard my dad say thank you or please. Why? Because you'd be like feminine if you did that. It's like, no, you're not. It's not a feminine thing. But he's a tough guy. Dad was always in fights. fighting people. I've seen him fight 3 people. He was in his 80s, and he's still alive. He was in his 80s. Him and my brother, he almost killed my brother one time. That isn't a joke. That we'll come back to that. He literally almost killed him. He was in the hospital, got his appendix removed, and maybe not fatherly, but angry. So they're at a gas station. My brother's on the phone talking, and these guys are giving my dad a hard time at the gas pump, kind of telling some jokes about old guys and stuff. And, they'd never met my dad, so they're just pumping gas. Most of the time you don't have a problem pumping gas, right? Well, they're just pumping gas, and these guys are starting to talk to my dad. My dad's like, he's up for the challenge. And my brother's on the phone. He's like, hang on just a second, Rick. Dad's back there, and he's doing fine. He's doing fine. They're screaming and hollering. People are back there fighting. So fist fighting started. My brother's just on the phone. He's an 8 also. Just kind of laughing. Hey, he's talking about girls and women and all that stuff. And my dad's back there in a fist fight with 3 guys. My brother's he's fine. He's got him on the ground. The one guy's knocked out. We're okay. Hey, how's things going in Virginia? What's the weather like? I mean, this is like a family conversation. When the dad's back there beating the hell out of 3 people, he's like 80. Okay, because with my dad, you'd rather take the beating with the hands as you would what happens next, because he's a pretty resourceful person. He's got a tiered approach to dealing with you. So he doesn't just do the hands thing. So you for some reason win at the hands level, you won't win at the next 2 or 3 levels. So scary stuff, and a person you'd want to avoid. In this example, me and thousands of other males like me had fathers that were our enemy in some ways. Instead of it being friendly and going fishing and taking care of me, it's like, no, it's the worst abnormal psychology ever, because the protector becomes the enemy. Now that will mess with your head right there. That'll mess you up. And I don't know if all these people become pipe fitters and welders, but about 35% of my guys have fathers like that. They're just tough and rowdy and direct. So when I tell my story, they're like, hey, Rick, can I set a goal meeting with you to tell you my story? It's like, sure. Similarities like crazy, so.
We have a similar story in that way. And, my dad was physically violent from time to time, enough that it created this, you and I talked about this, you'd have kind of your ears out for when, as long as people were yelling, everything was fine. But when things got quiet, then that the smacking would begin or the hitting would begin, and then you'd be listening. Your brain is so in tune to the shift in the air and the sounds to what's about to happen next, and that an argument is okay. The quietness after the argument is not okay, and for sure. Tell me, what did you find solace in? Where did you? Young Rick, what do you do to cope? What do you do to manage that season?
I can't really think of what it was at like 8, 9, and 10, but at 12, 13, and 14, I started going to a list. And the list, it kind of fits my creative pioneer. It let me plan, and the planning would let me escape the present. Therefore, today, I'm not good in present. A lot of people don't realize that. I have trouble being present. I have an addiction to busyness. A lot of people say, well, addiction to busyness, that's a good thing, right? It's like anything. It's excessive. But a lot of people, it creates success, right? No, it's an addiction. And I'll just run to it all the time. I'll just go get busy, So I think that was happening at age probably 11 to 15. I started getting a notepad, started thinking ahead, and it kind of created these goals. It created this idea of, I don't have to be where I'm at. I can be somewhere else eventually, So that turned out to be just a huge thing for me later in life, because I can withstand. When I start climbing a hill, most people fall out at like 3 months. They just lose their vision and give up. I'm like, no. We're just getting started here. Yeah, you're hurting, but you're going to hurt worse, but it's going to be worth it. So that adversity became a gift. And here it is. And everybody wants to, I can sit right here and be the victim. Oh my God. Well, I got to put it in perspective. There was some things that weren't good. And, I've many a time talked about with my father. He wasn't necessarily purposeful about it. And I do think he loved me. Okay. I think he's proud of me, but he just didn't know how to do it. But the fact that he was like that made me partially who I am. All the nurturing was taken out of me as a child. Because whenever you had a feeling about something, it just hurt. because it was going to go wrong. So with me, I learned to ride the high wire with no feelings, because if I had the less feelings I had, the less it hurt, right? I mean, why not? Okay, so if I don't have any feelings about it, hey, don't hurt. Well, nowadays I'm plagued with that. The 63-year-old version of me is how to move into that, how to spend the next 20 years of my life having feelings and be connective and being present. You see it, so I'm here and got this big business and successful. And I don't have it figured out either. I'm working on, some people say, man, you got money. Well, I have money, but I lack feeling. I can be insensitive. I can be really good at a list, and I can be really good at doing stuff, but there's more than one person called me the Tin Man. They're just like, dude, you don't have any heart. And there's some truth in there. I take that as advice. I don't take that as a judgment of being like, I got some work to do there. I know some people, they're extremely hardy. They have trouble doing things because they're so hardy and present, they can't do the list and can't move the list forward. So, again, all these things can be bad, and I can be a victim, and I can still be mad at my dad every day. Both my brothers are still angry at their father. I've released that. My dad's a flaming Enneagram 8. Okay. He's a wildcat dude. Okay. But I don't have to every day be waiting for him to show up to play baseball with me. Where so many males, this talked about when there was a study done in prison. I'm a bit of a fan of this because I'm from this neck of the woods, that 92% of the men that are incarcerated in prison are there because their fathers betrayed them, and they have extreme anger. They do things with that anger. They're mean, hurt people. Well, they were hurt. Hurting makes sense. So we could sit here and say, man, you're a prisoner. You're in jail. Well, when you start to study it, they've seen these things. I made it out. My two brothers didn't make it out. That makes sense. So at the end of the day, we're learning stuff. We're becoming more aware. Instead of saying bad people to the right and good people to the left, usually it's wounded people, not bad people. Yeah. There are some bad people, but that's a really small number. It's usually wounded people. So
there's something parallel that happens here, kind of teeter-tottering between the deep and the shallow that you're going, kind of intertwining. You were working on mechanical things from an early age too, right? So for you, as a kid, you work on your bikes, and then you go into your list season at 12, and you kind of begin to work on more like motorbikes or four-wheelers and stuff like that. Does that become an outlet for you or an escape for you of being able to, much like boilers today, motors doesn't have emotions. It's very dependable. You know what I mean? And so, what was the progression? I think there was a progression that we had seen, that you start working on bikes and then it kind of moves through to, like, I believe cars even, you know what I mean? Is there a progression there?
There is. And and you're making a good point. They didn't talk back. They weren't angry. They didn't hit you. You could read about them. You could get a manual. You could ask somebody about it. You could work stuff out in your mind. You could make a list up, but it didn't hit you. It didn't scream at you. It didn't throw its emotions on you. So, in kind of the neighborhood I grew up in, we started off with the bikes, and we had kind of a rule in the neighborhood that nobody really owned a bike. We just stole them from each other and transitioned them. And it was kind of okay. It's one of those, if your bike was orange and it disappeared and you're pretty sure somebody had your bike, but it was red, you're like, it's okay. I'll just steal it back in 6 months and paint it blue. Not a big deal. So we just kind of, that was a code of the road. Stealing stuff was part of living there. So, and then we fixed the bikes up, and then I got into motorcycles because it was a bike with an engine. And like $200 motorcycles, man, pieces of junk, just really a lot of working on. They wouldn't run. But the fact they wouldn't run made me work harder to make them run. Because when you don't have money, you got time. I had plenty of time and no money, so you're reading the book and calling somebody, or you can't afford to do anything. So you're just working on them like crazy. Then that was probably going on. The motorcycles and the dirt bike thing was probably 12 to 14. Then I started working on the cars, and really liked all of that. And then eventually moved into the boilers. So I've been really blessed because all those things, it's almost like in my lifetime, I don't think most things are accidental. I think they're Holy Spirit driven, Jesus driven, so here it is. How blessed could a person be that I'm in a career that I loved? I've never really had a job. I just kept working on bikes, dirt bikes and cars that became boilers and chillers and cooling towers, So I don't really have a job, and that's really been a blessing, because you can hear me, like right now, I hear myself just kind of laughing about it. It's like some people have a job and they think it's like a dungeon and the worst thing ever. I didn't have that type of job. I had this job where every day was like working on bikes and cars and that type of thing. So yeah, it's just an extension of my childhood, and these lists. I remember being 18 years old and going to work. I was a janitor. My very first job, I needed a job. And so there was no particular reason. I just needed a job because I had a wife and my daughter at home. And, I'd gotten my wife pregnant in high school, which that didn't go over real well either. So you can just see, now that I didn't plan that. Okay. That was a bit more spontaneous. But it
wasn't on the list.
The list for what?
It wasn't on the list to get your wife, your girlfriend pregnant. It was on the list, but you could say that one of the items on there contributed to it. Gotcha.
So there's a saying that says that in Think and Grow Rich, that most successful people are of a highly sex nature. I'm just like, I just want to be successful. So anyway, okay, what were we talking about?
We're working through, and this is kind of where I want to land the plane as we go through this. We're working through some of the mechanical and how you've never had a job.
Okay, so we're 18 years old.
And before we start, I would like to pick up there next time of 18 and your first job, because your first job really takes you into the boiler world, and it really kind of takes off from there, from Indiana to Virginia, right? And so, but tell me what. Working on cars, the season of meeting Sonia. I'd love to kind of end our episode 1 with that. You guys is coming together, and it's such a huge part of your life today. Your life with her, the life that you guys have built. And so, before we get to your first job, I wanted to talk about what was it like meeting Sonia, connecting, and then ending up in the situation where you end up with a baby and have to go to work. So we'll stop it there.
Well, and just a second ago, something just happened. I have ADHD. So you can see the thought went away. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, where were we? Mm-hmm. I like to admit that, where I want more people to admit that. It's like, look, it's okay. In some ways, my ADHD makes me use my list more, because I know I can get tripped up and I can make mistakes. So it's a handicap, but it's only a handicap if you allow it to be one. At the end of the day, I'm not embarrassed by that. I messed up in our conversation, but it's just like, that's me. I'm wired that way, So it is real. People have it. So don't be embarrassed about it. It's just part of your life. The thing with Sonia, we moved to Martinsville, Indiana, and go to high school there. And I meet at age, I was like 16. And I had my driver's license and she didn't, but they had a basketball game going on at Martinsville High School. And for some reason, I was sitting on one side, all the way on the other side, up in the bleachers to the right. There was this girl up there, and she was like one of those flag girls. So she had like these really tall white boots on, this really beautiful outfit. She's wearing a hat, and she did like flags and all that stuff. And it's like, for some reason, I'm like, I really like that girl over there. And I studied her for a second, because I was a bit of a studier. I'm just like, you ain't ready for that one, but what the hell, So I just let it kind of go. I just blew it off. It's like, that ain't gonna work out. So because the rating level was not there. I mean, she was rated really high and I was rated really low. So, but with me, I had my list. That's pretty persistent. So saw her again. I'm like, wow, okay. And after that, I'm like, I need to find out about that. Next thing you know, I find out her name and ask other people about her. And they're kind of feeding that back to her. I didn't realize at the time. They're kind of slowly feeding back that I'm doing these things. And some of my buddies were trying to make the connection there. And, so with me, I'm following her around to school, and she doesn't know I'm following her around. And eventually we're in the cafeteria, and I send her a letter, or send her like a note. And I thought for sure it'd be in the trash can and she'd, report me to the school. But instead she responds back favorably, like, how you doing? What's going on? I'd like to talk with you and we can talk a little bit. So in the whole time, I'm like, there's no way this is going to work out, because there's about 500 other guys she should be with, not me, because self-image issues and childhood issues and all of that. And she had a family. So this continues, and we start talking and all that stuff. And, the whole time I'm like, she had a boyfriend, and it wasn't like a real close relationship. So I had to deal with that. So I beat him up, and, and he just decided not to. He was kind of a fun guy. So he's like, look, it ain't worth it. You can have her. He's like, I don't really care. So that happened. And so that got him out of the picture. But I'm just like, there's 499 people now that want to be with this girl. So the whole time I'm just worried what's going to happen. She's going to get another guy and I'm going to get thrown away. But instead it starts working out. My wife has a horse rescue. I think I was our first human rescue. She kind of took me in like a stray dog. And so we started dating and we're together, and my whole life is her. I mean, there is nothing else. I already have a car. It's all fixed up and really cool. And she's kind of wondering if the car is more important to me than her. And we don't ask that question right now. But it was fun, and she's hanging out with me, and I spent all of my time with her. And eventually we're together. When you're together enough times at that age, with the thought process I had, pregnancy seems to be a destination. So I remember the location we created my daughter. It was next to a boiler plant. So I'm just like, these boiler plants keep coming up. I was in the backseat of my car on Blue Bluff Road. I'm just like, that's where my daughter got started. So, and we're not shy of that either. Our family knows about it. Most families hide it. We got our butts kicked about this, and our family almost betrayed us and threw us away. Come to find out, our family had the same stuff going on. What hypocrites. And they just were brutal to us, Wow, but it's okay. We got through it. So, it's like now I have a daughter and I have a wife, and my daughter and wife are living over at her family's place, and I'm living at my place with my mom and dad, spending all my time over there with her. And, eventually I have to get a job, and I wanted to get a job. I had some other jobs, like working on engines and stuff like that, making kind of side money. So my dad, his wife, worked at a boiler company in Indianapolis, Indiana, and they said, hey, there's an opening here. And I said, I don't care, I'll take it. And I said, janitor, I don't care. I need a job. So I got a job there as a janitor, and I'm really thankful that I got to see things from the janitor's perspective. I've had the lowest position of any CEO in the country that is where I'm at now. I made it to this level.
Yes.
So
that's where I want to pick up next time. As we continue to see, and we want to get into some of the details of just really your story, some of the hardships, some of the difficulty, some of the pain. And I appreciate you being so open and thorough, even with just sharing with us about your dad, right? Of just kind of what that looks like. Because it all, you said it, I'll end with this thought. We all show up with all of our story to work every day. And we think, we don't talk about those things. Those things don't matter. Those things actually impact the way that we go about our relationships, what triggers us, what we engage, what we disengage with. It's at work every day. One of the things I read over the break was that when you know someone's story, it is almost impossible to vilify them, because you are able to understand what makes a person, hurt people. Why would a hurt person hurt a person? And when you understand the backstory, then you're able to go, there's grace for that. There's empathy for that. There's understanding. Again, there's awareness for that. So, Rick, thank you for sharing so far.
Very good.
And inviting us into this journey of the Leader's Furnace. I feel like this is your journey of being in the furnace. But I think everybody else is also in their own journey of being in the furnace or about to enter into that process, right? I think there is going to be a lot of illusions that have to get burned out in the process. And so we'll come up with, as we're going through your story, we'll keep going through different illusions that keep coming up.
And what is our goal? To make apostles. I've made about 60 apostles. Some people have made none. You'd have to ask the question. Selfish people don't make apostles. Others as people do. And that should be all of our goals. That's the message, is to make apostles, to get in a relationship and to help people get out of these traumas and to get out of the dysfunction, sometimes get out of the comfort. Some people have wonderful families. Their problem's different than those of us that had trauma. They're comfortable and want to stay comfortable, right? But at the end of the day, it's making apostles. And if you can't make a list of apostles, you need to be a little bit concerned about your level of selfishness. I'm just saying, it's just like at the end of the day, you want to have I plan on making another 25 before I die.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some people divide. Some people are negative at their impact. Some people are positive in their impact. They're the ones that say, my door's open. I'm here if you need me. And then some people actually multiply. And what you're saying is our job is to multiply. I think the hottest fire in this furnace is going to be the work, what do you call it? The Grand Canyon of actually learning to multiply. Yeah. Right. And that's kind of the hardest work. So thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
Yeah.
Edy.